Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So welcome to Creative Insights. Before we move into introductions, I'll just open with a karakia, and then I'll introduce you to our panelists and the sort of intent for the session ahead today. So kēnā tātou, tu taua mai I runga, tu taua mai I raro, tu taua mai I roto, tu taua mai I waho, kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, homie, hui tai ki. So welcome to Creative Insights. This is the first in a series of online hui presented by Auckland Council and Te Taumata Toi-a-Iwi, which aims to make creative sector research more accessible, relatable, and relevant. In this first session, we'll explore Aucklanders in the Arts, which is a comprehensive look at attitudes, attendance, and participation in the arts across Tāmaki Makaurau. First up, we're going to hear from independent research and evaluation agency Varian, who conducted the research. Then our panelists will discuss the significance of this research, its role in guiding strategic decisions within local and central government, and how we might use this within our advocacy efforts across the sector. So we're really looking forward to that discussion, given the moment in time we're in. I'll hand over to our speakers to introduce themselves. Alison, I might start with you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Alison Tapuinga. I think most of you probably know me, but I'm from Te Taumata Toi-a-Iwi, the Regional Arts Trust, and I'm really looking forward to the presentation and the conversations today. And it's great to be doing this in collaboration with Creative New Zealand and Auckland Council. Thank you.
Oh, Chloe.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, ko Chloe Howard tōku ingoa. My name's Chloe Howard, and I am a Senior Policy Advisor with Auckland Council, and stepping in for the lovely Liz Civil from Auckland Council, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. Super excited about this. My role at Council involves supporting Toi Whetiki, and this research has been a significant part of the work that we do and informs our practice. So really looking forward to the conversation. Kia ora.
And Jocelyn, I'll hand to you.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou I tēnei rā, ko Jocelyn Rout aho. I'm Jocelyn from Varian. I'm co-managing director, and I led the Creative New Zealand's New Zealanders in the Arts research, which this is a part of. Kia ora.
And Elizabeth, I'll pass to you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Elizabeth Beale tōku ingoa. I'm the Co-Manager Policy and Performance at Creative New Zealand and have responsibility for our research program. So it's wonderful to be here alongside Te Taumata Toi and Auckland Council, who have in fact been partners with us in this research since 2005. So great to be here. And I just want to acknowledge Richard Thompson, who is on the line and who led this research working with Varian. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all for making the time. Jocelyn, I might hand to you and we'll pick in.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Right, let's get started. Right. As I said, this research is part of Creative New Zealand's New Zealanders in the Arts research that they conduct every 3 years. The purpose of that is to measure New Zealanders' engagement with the arts, including attendance and participation, as well as some wider attitudes to the arts. And the Auckland component of this was carried out in partnership with Auckland Council. So in total, we surveyed over 2,600 residents in the Auckland region, age 15 plus, and nationally, we surveyed over 6,500 New Zealanders. So this presentation focuses on the Auckland region results, but we do make comparisons to the national results where it's of interest. The survey was conducted at the end of last year. We primarily used online panels to source respondents. We also partnered with disabled people's organisations who shared more accessible survey invites with their networks. The data is demographically representative on age by gender, ethnicity and local board. We weighted the data using Statistics New Zealand population characteristics. So first of all, we're going to look at how Aucklanders value the arts. So this is in terms of how they see it at the national level, a community level, and at a personal level. So how do Auckland residents believe the arts benefit New Zealand. So starting on the left of this page, around 2/3, 65% of Aucklanders believe that the arts improve New Zealand society. And this is significantly higher than the national average of 60%. So in this presentation, where you see an upward arrow or a downward arrow, that means that the Auckland result is either higher or lower than the national result. And you can also see that there's been a real strengthening in belief about this over time. So over the last decade, we see an increase of 10 percentage points. Over the last decade, we also see a similar increase in how Aucklanders view the arts contributing positively to our economy. And so that's gone up by 11 points over the last decade, and a fairly similar picture nationally on that one. We asked a new question in 2023, and this was around the arts creating jobs both in and around the creative industries, and 3/4 of Aucklanders agree that that is the case. A number of the measures also speak to this theme that the arts contribute to a more livable city. And in particular, we can see that 2/3 of Aucklanders believe that the arts and culture play really a vital role in the future of the city, that half believe that their community would be poorer without the arts, and over half believe that the arts provide them opportunities personally to socialise and connect with others, and that's higher than the national average. Just looking at the quote from a respondent down the bottom there, which really speaks to the theme that the arts contribute to a more livable city. We see that Aucklanders' personal connection with the arts has strengthened since 2020, and it's also stronger than the national averages. In 2023, more people compared to 2020 say that the arts are important to their personal well-being. That's up 4 points. More people say that the arts are a part of their everyday life. That's increased 7 points since 2020. And across all of these four results, we can see the results are higher than the national average. We included a couple of new measures this time around, the two on the right. The arts are good for my mental health and well-being. So around 2/3 of Aucklanders feel that that's the case for them. And the results were significantly higher for women, sole parents, and Māori. And the arts make people feel less lonely and isolated. 43% agree with that. And again, this was especially the case for young people under 30, Māori, Pacifica, Asian, and sole parents. This quote from the respondent down the bottom there really speaks to how the arts have a powerful way of engaging our emotions, whether that's making us laugh, making us cry, or making us reflect more deeply. The arts expand our perspectives. So we included two new measures in 2023 on the left and the middle there, which tell us around that 7 in 10 Aucklanders believe that the arts can play a role in raising awareness of issues facing society, and also raising awareness of issues facing the natural environment. 7 in 10 Aucklanders also believe that the arts should be part of the education of every New Zealander. And this is a little higher than the national average. And the quote down the bottom from a respondent really speaks to how the arts can foster our empathy and understanding of others and expand how we might see the world. The arts support cultural connection. So 72% of Aucklanders felt that they learn about different cultures through the arts. And over half, 59%, say that the arts are an important way of connecting with their own culture. And both of those perceptions are stronger than across the New Zealand average. This respondent quote here speaks to the way the arts communicate across cultures to bring us together and to build that sense of understanding. One of the biggest shifts that we saw in the research, both in terms of the national results and the Auckland region, was really around the strengthening of how people feel, the growing appreciation and understanding of Ngā Toi Māori and the Pacific arts. So 60% of Aucklanders feel that Ngā Toi Māori helps define who we are as New Zealanders. That's up 3 points. Ngā Toi Māori motivates people to want to kōrero Māori, up 5 points. Over half of Aucklanders feel that the Pacific arts help define who we are as New Zealanders, and a quarter of Aucklanders feel that the Pacific arts motivate them to speak a Pacific language. And this respondent quote here is just a really lovely example of the opportunity that people have to express artistic capabilities in Te Ao Māori. So all of what we've looked at so far really leads us to this finding that Aucklanders' support for public funding of the arts has really grown over time, that you can see on the left there, a 16-point increase over the last decade or so in terms of support for public funding. And over half of Aucklanders believe that the local council should also give money to support the arts. The respondent quote at the bottom here really speaks of the importance of funding even in these tough economic times, which we were facing budget cuts and the like. So next we're going to look at how Aucklanders engage, attend and participate in the arts. So in the survey we measure people's attendance and participation in the arts by looking at their attendance and participation with 6 different art forms over the last 12 months, and we'll look at those in a moment. And then based on this, we construct an overall attendance score, an overall participation score, and then we construct an overall engagement score, which is essentially the percentage of people who have either attended or participated in at least one of the 6 art forms in the last 12 months. So from this chart, what you can see is that engagement and attendance suffered a little bit from COVID dips in 2020, but they have bounced back in 2023, and participation levels are at a high in terms of their level. This chart shows us those 6 different art forms and how Aucklanders' participation in those art forms varies. So we can see there that participation is highest for Ngā Toi Māori and Pacific arts, each at 24%, followed by visual arts at 22% and craft and object art at 21% and performing arts at 20%. And we can see significant increases for Ngā Toi Māori and Pacific arts and performing arts. And this chart looks at Aucklanders' attendance with the different art forms, and we can see here that attendance has significantly increased since 2020 across 5 of the art forms. I dug a bit deeper into this just to see what was going on, and so I had a look at what the pre-COVID 2017 results were like as well. And what I found is that for performing arts, 2023 definitely shows a bounce back after COVID, but for visual arts and Ngā Toi Māori in particular, the current levels are higher than the pre-COVID levels. Finally, we're going to consider how we increase engagement with the arts. So we found that Aucklanders, like New Zealanders generally, are quite divided when it comes to their perceptions of how accessible or how inclusive the arts are. So we had, for example, half of Aucklanders saying that they can easily access the arts, but half who felt they couldn't. Almost half feeling that their community has a broad range of arts and artistic experiences that they can experience, but the other half who don't feel that way, and about half said that they could afford to participate in creative activities in their community, whereas half felt that they couldn't. So let's look at how we can increase engagement. So we asked people what would make a difference to them going to the arts more often, and this chart tells us, the figures on this chart tell us the percentage of people who say that this factor would make a difference to them going more often. The results in orange are Auckland results, and the ones in teal are the national results. And so what we can see is that for Aucklanders, The factors that would make the biggest difference would be cheaper tickets, more appealing arts events, easier travel to the event, and someone to go with. A number of these events are more pronounced in the Auckland region than they are nationally. And we also see some differences by key audiences, particularly for the rainbow community, and where that result was most pronounced was that sense of feeling confident that they would feel welcome in attending the arts. That was 50% for them rather than the average Aucklander at 32%. And just to wrap up, just leaving you with a quote, which was one of my favourites. This really speaks to the way that art shapes every aspect of our lives, preserving culture across generations, and enriching how we live and how we work and how we connect with one another. Tēnā koe.
Yeah, thank you, Jocelyn. I think overall it's fantastic to see the trends on the whole are increasing, but what was particularly interesting was to see the differences between the Auckland data and the national data and looking at that kind of differences. And I'm really keen to hear what comments from our panel. I just also wanted to thank you for the clarity of presentation in terms of the way of presenting that research, and just note that we were going to share these slides with everyone afterwards. So you've got a chance to not only read the wider research, but we'll share the wonderful clarity of these slides as well after the session. So I'm going to kick off to our panelists now. As we go through, if you've got comments or questions, again, just put them in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end. But Chloe, we're going to start with Auckland Council's sort of view here. Why, starting from why does Auckland Council invest in this research? What's the sort of intent here?
Oh, kia ora. Thanks, Kylie, and thanks, Jocelyn. It was a really great presentation, and no matter how many times you read it, it's always insightful to get something extra from it. So thanks for doing that. Yeah, so for Auckland Council invests in research across a range of areas, but with the arts and culture one, particularly, I guess up front, it's a great opportunity to leverage and work with Creative New Zealand in terms of the significant piece that's been done. The opportunity to add into that is one that is a good cost benefit for Auckland Council, and it also means that we have data that's specific to the Auckland region. And as you saw in Jocelyn's presentation, there are some quite significant differences in Auckland's size in terms of population and makeup of population. Also means that we get a little bit more granular detail in the results. In terms of evidence and research as a whole, this piece has, as Elizabeth said, has been a long partnership from 2005. And what that means is that we've got a significant piece of data and we're able to watch and see trends over that time. We use this research in particular. It helps us in terms of driving our strategies and policies internally at Council. It provides evidence to enable us to monitor and measure how we're tracking against some of the big Auckland plan and also within Toi-a-Iwi. It also, I think it's useful, and we saw it in COVID, it gives a sector specific but also a regionally specific voice to the arts. We know that during COVID, being able to gather data that demonstrated the value of the arts was significant in supporting and ensuring continued investment into areas. These figures are high, they show good engagement, they show benefit, they show participation. And what that enables us to do at Council is to really have quite a strong evidence case or evidence around the value that arts bring into the region and across the multiple areas. I don't think there's any other piece of research that has the length of time that this one has had, the trends and the continued, the way that Varian and, as Jocelyn said, conduct this research ensures that it's a quality piece for the sector. In terms of the ongoing, again, when we saw with COVID, it was hugely beneficial, and recently with the work, and I'm sure Alison will talk to this a little bit more, but with Stop the Cuts or Arts Action, it's important to be able to have a voice for the arts. So I think they're kind of the main areas. I'm happy to have a little bit more of a conversation, but I'll hand over back to you, Kylie, and we can go.
Cool. Thanks, Chloe. It's great to hear how it informs, I guess, the work that Auckland Council does. But I think a good place is there linking in with you, Alison, in terms of, the opportunity to drive strategy and policy and provide research and evidence. I know this is particularly of interest for Taumata Toi-a-Iwi, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you. Thanks, Jocelyn and Chloe. Yes, look, I'm a big fan of having particularly long-term evidence and insights. This is quite unique, I would say, the length of the relationship and the ability to look back and see those trends. From a sort of advocacy and policy advice point of view, it's really helpful to understand the value of something and how people perceive it and how those perceptions and behaviours change over time. And it really does make a difference when you're both developing policy, but you're also advocating for policy change or ideas to have that type of information. The other place it's really helpful is if you're applying for funding, if you're an applicant, to be able to build up a picture and tell a story about your own organisation, but to refer to this more general population information is incredibly helpful when you're making funding applications, when you're doing submissions. And I guess lastly, the thing I'd say is right now we've got an opportunity to make submissions on the draft creative and cultural strategy Amplify that the government's released. And so the timing's perfect to be having a conversation about making sure we've got strong qualitative and quantitative data that we can use when we are, again, it's a form of advocacy, but we're formally encouraging people to make submissions and through Arts Action Now, which is our collective advocacy website with others across the country. This type of research is just invaluable. So I think there's lots of ways it can be helpful. It tells a story. Storytelling is really important. Hard evidence, quantitative measures is really helpful, showing change over time. And there's a lot in here that you can pick and choose from about whether you're interested in particular population perspectives or particular types of art form. It's a really wonderful piece of research, and fantastic that there's been this partnership over so many years. Long may that last. That doesn't actually happen very often, I might add. So thank you to Creative New Zealand and Auckland Council.
Thanks, Alison. And sort of picking up that kind of Creative New Zealand connection and looking at a national level, Elizabeth, really keen to hear from a Creative New Zealand viewpoint why you invest in and whether you're seeing sort of that variance between regional and national, any trends over time that you can share as well.
Great, thanks, Kylie. Alison and Chloe have sort of said a bit of it already, but I guess what we also understand is that there is limited research capacity within the sector. And therefore, the benefit of having a strong evidence base, both around engagement and attitudes, is critical both for us and for the sector. And as people have said, the benefit of this has been long-term research. This is the 7th iteration that we've done, which enables, as Alison said, us to track those trends over time and respond accordingly. So the kind of ways that we use this research is it does feed into decisions we make about how and where we invest our resources. It helps us design programs when we know where the issues might be. Because as Alison noted, we can look at engagement, attendance and barriers across different communities. So alongside the main report and the young person's report, we do bespoke reports around Māori, Pacific, Asian, deaf and disabled communities, and there's 13 regional reports in there. So it provides us quite a nuanced look at different perspectives. It also supports our own advocacy and storytelling work. So we regularly make submissions on local government annual and long-term plans, and we're able to use that regional data as well as the national data to help back up, the kind of advocacy that we're doing to local government, which is about trying to recognise the value of arts, culture and heritage, and also to try and, maintain, at best investment levels. It also supports government policy making. We can see that in Amplify. Alison's referred to the National Cultural Strategy. You can see this research being referenced in those documents, which for us, and I know Richard's favourite thing to say is people are talking about the research. It's being referenced. This is a good thing. We also can see it in some terrific work that Toi-a-Iwi, the Workforce Development Council, has been doing in developing workforce development plans, most recently around the performing arts sector. We can see them using this research, which is excellent. We also do, in part, provide this research as a resource for the sector to advocate on its own behalf. We've got some tools that our advocacy team have developed, just acknowledging Cara Patterson from our advocacy team here. We've got a fact finder tool where we add a lot of our research insights. It's a resource base that the sector can use to tap in and find research insights to use in their own advocacy. It also will, with the long-term nature of this research and also other research that we do with Varian as well, like our creative professionals, we can start to kind of triangulate some of those insights. So what we know from New Zealanders in the arts is that sort of largely the public's doing quite well. We've got high levels of engagement, high levels of participation. Attitudes are increasingly and, pretty positive. When we look at our creative professionals research, however, we see that the practitioners working in the sector are not doing so well. When we look at median income levels around 37,000 versus 61,000 for salary and wage earners, that presents quite a disjunct in a way. So doing this research helps us to look at things from different perspectives. It also, Alison mentioned numbers are helpful. So we use this research when we try and make bids to government for additional funding. Nothing that the Treasury likes more than a good set of numbers. So this is terrifically helpful research in those spaces. And I guess picking up the point of over time, what Jocelyn's slide started to point to is some of those shifts over time. Particularly this year, it was very noticeable around participation. We can start to look at participation levels back to 2005. 2005, 37%. 2023, 54%. So that's a really significant shift over a reasonably long period of time. We were also really pleased to see some of those, and this was picked up in Jocelyn's slide, some of those quite critical attitudinal statements that have also shifted markedly over time. So things like the arts should receive public funding, the arts contribute positively to our economy, my community would be poorer without the arts help define who we are as New Zealanders. Ngā toi Māori motivates me to kōrero Māori. These are statements where we're seeing, 10-point and over shifts over time. And that's, I think, really significant and really useful for us and for the sector in the advocacy work to show that public sentiment is moving. And it also, as has been kind of referred to, it helps us look at some of points in time changes. So when we look at this research over time, we can see there was a dip during the GFC around attendance. We can also visibly see the dip in COVID, and that helps us in things like advocating to government around the need for support for the sector. So when attendance goes down, arts organisations are suffering, and that's where we can demonstrate that drop and be able to say we need to be able to support the sector through times like the GFC, COVID, etc. So it is that critical evidence base, and I think really the long-term nature of the research really helps us get a lot more from it. And so just really acknowledging also Auckland Council's, long-term commitment, because that's really helpful for us. Back to you, Kylie.
Yeah, Chloe, Alison, is anything you sort of want to add there? I mean, there's a really interesting piece here around sort of Alison, you mentioned storytelling, but, you've got some hard data here and some really great commentary and you're mixing that with the actual stories of impact. Alison, I don't know whether you want to speak a bit more into that.
Yeah, look, I think it is really helpful. Everyone knows that, stories can be incredibly powerful. I've experienced this, in the many years that I worked in philanthropy, the power of a story to influence decision makers about whether they should fund something or not. And I think, arts is such a fascinating area because creatives and artists are great storytellers. And so they not only tell stories in the course of their work, but they also then, to capture the stories about the value and impact of the arts. It feels like another piece of the same jigsaw. And we know what a difference that can make. It's very influential. And I think, arts as activism, we've seen a lot of that, wonderful activism of late around really important issues that the country is facing. And artists are often at the center of that. So I think, that use of creativity, the ability to tell stories, is an inherent part of being human and society and all cultures. And so I think when you then have research that brings in more of the quantitative stuff, but over time, it really just adds value to the whole picture that we're looking at. And even, in Jocelyn's presentation, you're looking at the data and then you're going, and there's a really lovely quote, which tells a bit of a story about someone's personal experience or perspective. And we're all different as to what we naturally tune into. But I'm someone who, I don't mind a bit of data, but I really love the personal journeys and stories. And so, I think the presentation really showed that. So I think when organizations are thinking about how can I use this, a mixture of what you've got in your own organization already about the stories of change and impact that your artistic practice has on the people that come and experience it, the stories of the creatives and their own journeys, as Elizabeth was talking about both the challenges and the joys of being a creative, and then having the data that says this is what the public think and feel in this instance. I think it's just all part of the same journey and jigsaw that we need to be using when we are trying to increase awareness and knowledge, and really just increase the valuing and therefore the investment that's needed ultimately to support the arts.
Yeah, Chloe, did you want to add anything?
Just really to add that, in the current climate, it seems to be the quantitative data and the figures are really kind of front and center. And I think there's something quite unique about the fact that we have this strong evidence piece that is a longitudinal, and it's, I know for Auckland Council, the fact that it's a separate piece and it's commissioned, it stands on its own with the sector. It really does provide, I guess, again, the kind of clarity of the voice. And like Alison said, the narrative and the story is really important, but it's also really important that we've got the figures in here and we're able to use those to look at sort of, I don't need to tell this group that it's slightly frustrating. 20 years later, we're still having the conversations around the value of the arts, but in fact we are. So we really want to hold on to, this evidence piece. I've seen this research over the period from 2005 as a funder, where it's being presented in applications and as part of investment, and also as driving kind of decisions and programming in other areas. So it is a really influential piece, and it is a really great tool. I did also want to mention that Auckland Council has produced a sort of 2-page overview of a sort of infographic that Kylie will be sharing out with everyone. And the intent here is really to give some quick, easy access to some of those headline stats that can be pulled out and shared. I believe they can be popped into social media or different areas in terms of just really a tool to help people with their mahi and their work. So, yeah.
Thanks, Chloe. And I think that's sort of the intent of both this webinar and the presentation that Jocelyn has prepared and the handout is really, this research is there, it's incredibly valuable, but how do we make it easier for people to use that within their own work? Picking up on your point about sort of numbers important at the moment, that need for more sort of economic and rationale. Elizabeth, are you sort of seeing that in terms of your advocacy work with government or engagement with ministers?
Yes. I think we have got a government that's, we're all hearing them talk about performance, and we've got a more economically focused government. So I think the numbers certainly are extremely helpful for us. We've got the strong evidence, both in the through New Zealanders in the Arts, but also other work like the creative professionals. So we're able to paint that picture in clear, stark numbers. Yeah.
And Elizabeth, any more comments, or should we move to a Q&A? How are we feeling? We've got a question in the...
Yeah, just one last plug. I'll ask Richard or Cara just to drop a note into the chat around our fact finder. So when we talk about sort of access to this kind of data, the fact finder provides an easily searchable topic-based kind of search tool that'll pop you up evidence around the value of the arts across a range of different kind of ways of looking at it. So we'll pop a link into the chat to that.
So thank you all for your time. Before, as we move to a close, I think I'd just ask the people who've attended today if you wanted to share a last thought in the chat. We are intending on doing more of these. We've got another 2 webinars that we're going to look at in the new year, so we'll be sending out a short survey afterwards. But just as we move to close, I wonder if I can ask Jocelyn, Elizabeth, Alison and Chloe just to see a very short final reflection as we move to close.
Kia ora, just from me, it's just been an absolute privilege working with such an enthusiastic group of people as yourselves and the Creative New Zealand team earlier in the year. And we've just thoroughly enjoyed doing our little bit to help support and advocate for the arts. So tēnā koe.
Yeah, kia ora, thanks everyone. I guess the final kind of comment is that, you know, we hope you can use this information in a way that's helpful for you. And as always with Auckland Council, if there are things that you want to tell us or you think around the report or other ways that could be useful, then please do get in touch and do that. Yeah, it's exciting to see this kind of series start around sharing good quality information out to the sector to help really further the sector. So yeah, kia ora, thanks everyone.
Elizabeth, any last words?
I think it's probably all been said, but as Chloe said, if you know, we do this research partly for our own use, but also partly as a resource for the sector. So if there are things that you think need to be included in the research or ways we can make it more accessible, easier to understand, easier to use, do give us that feedback. And if you do have any questions, we're always here and we're open. Richard loves receiving emails about how people can use the research. So do get in touch.
And Alison, last words from you.
Just to echo, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks for doing the great research. And yeah, similarly, we love to get your feedback. We try to promote and share research as much as possible, whether we've done it or someone else has done it. It all adds to the picture. And my last thing is, please do a submission on Amplify, either personally in your own capacity or with your organisation or your friends. It's short and sweet is good, but it does make a difference.
So just to sum up, thank you obviously for your time, but we're going to share the presentation with you. So you've got that. We'll also share a 2-page research takeout that Auckland Council have shared. And we are going to be doing more of these and that aim to make sort of research more accessible in the new year. So we'll have more details on that. Really keen to hear thoughts on how you found this, how that worked, what you'd be interested in hearing more about, what you'd like to have unpacked, and what would be helpful for your mahi and your advocacy efforts. So ngā mihi nui, I'm just going to close with a karakia and we can all move on and back to our day. Kia no tātou, ka whakairia te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataka ai, homie, huie, tai kie.